on Whaling Street on a drizzly Tuesday. The sky hung low, like a swollen eyelid barely holding back tears. The house itself was old, narrow windows, brittle shutters that creaked like arthritic bones. But it was cheap. And more importantly, isolated. For a man seeking silence, it seemed perfect. My editor had been breathing down my neck for weeks. The final chapters of the novel were due by the end of the month, so I packed a typewriter, 2 suitcases, and a bottle of bourbon, and vowed not to leave the house until the work was done. At first, it was just dust and stillness. The walls reeked of age, a heady mix of damp wood, mold, and something oddly sweet, almost nauseating. I slept in the downstairs bedroom, wrote in the front room, and avoided the upstairs. Not out of fear, not then, but the floorboards up there felt brittle, as if they might collapse under my weight, like they were tired of remembering. It was on the second night that I first heard the sound. It was faint, like fingernails gently scraping the inside of the walls, a dry, intermittent rasp, always coming from the upstairs room, the only room in the house that was locked. I assumed it was rats, maybe a nest in the beams, but the scratching had rhythm, cadence. It would stop and start again, sometimes faster, like it was waiting for something or someone. By candlelight, I examined the door. The handle wouldn't budge. Oddly, there was no visible keyhole, as though the door had been sealed from the inside, not locked, sealed. The next morning I called the landlord, an old man with a breathy voice and hands that probably still shook even over the phone. When I asked about the room, he paused. Then, almost whispering, he said, "Best not to mess with what the house has already forgotten," and hung up. I returned to my writing. Characters danced across the page, sheets of paper piled on the floor like autumn leaves. But as the nights passed, the sounds upstairs grew, specific. The scratching was joined by a new noise. 3 knocks, always 3, then silence, like some kind of message. I started locking the door to the front room, as if a simple bolt could hold back something that, rationally, shouldn't exist. I kept telling myself, it's just the house settling, just the house remembering it used to be alive. And I would laugh, dryly, nervously, just for myself. Then came the 7th night. That's when I found the first mark. It was behind the bookshelf, one I hadn't moved since arriving. Etched into the plaster were 5 thin grooves, like claw marks. They ran in parallel, ending at a small bulge in the wall, as if something behind it was pushing to get out. That night the dreams began. Vivid, unsettling dreams. I'd walk up the stairs and knock on the locked door. 3 times, always 3. And from the other side, something would knock back. In the last dream, a voice, low, raspy, unmistakably human, whispered, "Why did you lock it?" I woke drenched in sweat, heart slamming in my chest like a caged bird. For the first time, I truly wondered if something inside that house wasn't just in my head. Later that day, I moved a heavy dresser in the downstairs bedroom and discovered a small trapdoor. It was old, carved from dark wood with a rusted iron ring. I pulled it open, and a wave of damp earth and mildew washed over me, like something exhaling after a long, silent sleep. Lantern in hand, I climbed down. The crawl space was narrow, the ceiling pressed low, held by beams blackened with rot. And there, in the center, sat a single armchair. It faced the wall. Hanging above it was a mirror. I stepped closer, trembling. My reflection stared back at me, or something that looked like me. But the eyes were wrong, sunken, the pupils blown too wide. And as I watched, the reflection smiled before I did, and then it blinked. I stumbled backward, the lantern slipping from my hand, snuffing out in the dirt. In the pitch dark, the knocking returned. 3 sharp knocks. But now, they were coming from the other side of the wall. I ran. For days I didn't go near the crawl space. Couldn't write. I barely slept. I started watching the staircase like a sentry, waiting for that upstairs door to swing open on its own. But eventually, curiosity smothered the fear. One night, I grabbed a crowbar and forced open the locked door. The smell hit me first. rot, like meat left to blister in the sun. The candle in my hand flickered, shadows crawling along the walls. And then I saw them. Words, thousands of words, scratched into the walls with fingernails, with blades, overlapping, repeating, desperate. He locked me in. He locked me in. He locked me in. In the center of the room, a chair. Leather straps hung from the arms, long since loosened. Against the far wall, an old leather-bound journal lay half open. I picked it up. The name on the first page was mine. The entries detailed days of isolation, strange dreams, knocking sounds, everything I was living through. And the final line read, "If I forget to lock it again, he'll get out." I staggered down the stairs, reeling. The house felt wrong, not new, familiar, like I'd lived this before, like I wasn't experiencing it for the first time, but remembering. At midnight, the house fell deathly still, and then, like the final act of a well-rehearsed play, came the knocking. 3 deliberate knocks. But this time, they came from inside the front room, where the typewriter was. I ran. It was on. Typing. Alone, keys clacking in a slow, methodical rhythm, like invisible fingers at work. A single line appeared on the white sheet. "I warned you." I left that night. Just the clothes on my back and the dread clinging to my skin. They say I never returned. And maybe that's true.